Okay. Instead of a sync clap, this time, we're doing a sync can. Let's see how that works out. I help run a local Trench Crusade play group in my area, right? We've got about 13 to 14 people who show up at a game store every Monday to play Trench Crusade. Of those 14 odd regulars, half of them play New Antioch. Pretty regularly, people who don't play the game will walk up to us while we're playing to ask us about it. And nearly universally, without fail, if those people tell us which army they were thinking of playing, they always say New Antioch. If you go to the official Trench Crusade Discord server, you can see how many people asked for which faction roles. New Antioch has the most, by an extreme margin, having almost double the number of people of the second highest group. It's undeniable. New Antioch is Trench Crusade's most popular and most played faction. It's not even close, nor is it hard to see why. They have rich lore deeply rooted in the actual history of the First and Second Crusades. They have a fantastic aesthetic, mixing late medieval armor designs with World War I uniforms. Turns out, sallet helmets and fatigues go really well together. Not to mention the power armor, and the potential for really strong regional differences in aesthetic due to the fact that New Antioch recruits its soldiers from all over the world. They're an incredibly cool looking army that is super sick to read about, so it's no wonder that so many people jump to Nantioch as their first army. But that is also, to be honest, a little unfortunate, because it means that a lot of new players are deciding to play New Antioch without really knowing what they're getting into. New Antioch is a great army. I'd say they're one of the best designed in the entire game, but you gotta kinda know what you're signing up for. This is the purpose this video serves. Rally the troops, sound the bugle, and get ready to go over the top. Because today, I'm going to be guiding you through the real-world history, in-universe lore, and tactical depths of Trench Crusade's poster children, so that you can start your warband with as much of a head start as possible. As with all discussions of Trench Crusade lore, we need to start with the state of the world immediately following the end of the First Crusade. After the conquest of Jerusalem and the retreat of the Seljuk Empire out of the Levant, the lands which the crusading armies initially promised to return to the Byzantine Empire was instead divided between its commanders as fiefdoms. This was the birth of the Crusader states. From north to south, they were the County of Edessa, Principality of Antioch, County of Tripoli, and the Kingdom of Jerusalem. The one we care the most about is the Principality of Antioch. The Principality of Antioch was founded by the Norman bloc of the Crusading army, led by Bohemond of Taranto. The kinda sorta bastard son of Robert Guiscard and Alberada of Belgio. I say he was kinda sorta bastard because the marriage between Robert and Alberada was later ruled to actually be illegal, and was eventually annulled when it was found out that they were too closely related to be legally married under Catholic canon law. That's right, the marriage that created Bohemond was considered too inbred for medieval Europe. Holy shit! So consanguination aside, Bohemond of Taranto would go on to become the first Prince of Antioch. And he did it through some pretty clever political skullduggery. He gained access to the city by bribing one of the guards with the promises of a title, and then announced that he would only let the other parts of the crusading army into the city if they agreed to declare him the Prince of Antioch after the city fell. This made him the first, but certainly not the last, of the commanders of the crusading armies who ended up breaking their vow to the Byzantine Empire to return reconquered land. And he established the Principality of Antioch as the first of the Crusader states. By the time the war was over, Baldwin I had established the county of Edessa, and Raymond IV established the county of Tripoli, and Godfrey of Bouillon, who positioned himself as the primary commander of the Crusader armies during the First Crusade, took Jerusalem as his capital, establishing the Kingdom of Jerusalem, the largest of the Crusader states. The Kingdom of Jerusalem would also be the first to fall to the heretic legions. In the immediate aftermath of the Siege of Jerusalem, the Crusader army purged the city of its original inhabitants, in an act of brutality so extreme that contemporary historians and chroniclers on both sides of the conflict described the city as being ankle-deep in rivers of blood. This included the near-total ethnic cleansing of the city's Jewish and Muslim populations, as well as the exile of Christian Arabs from the city of Jerusalem. Which I feel the need to remind you, the onus for the First Crusade to begin with was a lie that the Seljuk Empire was preventing Christians from visiting the city of Jerusalem, and they were now preventing Christian Arabs from living in the city of Jerusalem. So, you know, yeah. But hey, under all the bodies of the defenseless women and children, the oh-so-righteous Crusaders actually found something kind of cool. It was some kind of mysterious relic, and to this day, we don't actually know specifically what the relic was or what it did. But we do know that it was hellish in origin, and that the previous inhabitants of the city sealed it away for a fucking reason. Because almost immediately, the Crusaders who witnessed this relic took a knee and swore fealty to Satan. And then they opened the gate of hell, which is what allows demons and other horrible griblies to slither their way into our world, and actually starting the Trench Crusade for which the setting is named. But yes, please keep posting on, like, every forum, B-Sky post, fucking whatever you can get your hands on, about how the Catholics in the world of Trench Crusade are just the objective good guys, and how there's like no moral nuance to the setting, and there's like objective good guys and bad guys. Yeah. Sure. These first legions of hell would go on to conquer the Crusader states, each one falling fairly quickly right after the other, all except for the Principality of Antioch. The city of Antioch held out the longest against the Crusader armies, standing for almost 300 years. Until in 1545, the city was destroyed by the use of an infernal weapon of mass destruction, likely the first of its kind throughout the entire Trench Crusade. However, as the old saying goes, the city broke before the guard did, and Antioch's garrison remained fighting over the rubble of the city for an indeterminate amount of time long after the city itself actually fell. Soon after, the Sword Congress of Vienna... I fucking love this setting. The Sword Congress of Vienna declared the formation of the Principality of New Antioch. The participating nations of the Sword Congress agreed to build a new fortress city that would be dubbed New Antioch and would be supplied from outside by those participating nations, being sent regular supplies of food, war materiel, and most importantly, soldiers. The armies of New Antioch are made up of the ordinary men and women from all over the world. Rather, regiments and army groups are donated to New Antioch, who then operate independently, following their old command structures. Though there is a scant few who renounce their former citizenship and serve directly under the Duke of New Antioch. This makes the armies of New Antioch a truly eclectic hodgepodge of ethnicities, languages, and military cultures. Only in New Antioch can you see Scottish Highlanders fighting side by side with the elite scouts of Abyssinia. Though it's something of an open secret that this fortress city is, frankly, living on borrowed time. The immortal commanders of the armies of hell have only been able to unite long enough to launch full-scale assaults on the city 7 times, each one only being beaten back because that assaulting army broke apart into infighting. If the full might of the infernal armies were ever truly brought to bear against the city, it would fall. But that would require the court of the seven-headed serpent to stop plotting against itself, if only briefly, and we can't have that. But that doesn't stop the defenders of the home of all our hopes. Though New Antioch is constantly under siege, though it is ultimately a doomed task to defend it, as Old Antioch's garrison continued to fight over the rubble of the city after it had already fell, the defenders of New Antioch will take up arms, mount the walls, and make the hordes of hell bleed for every inch and every city block, should it come to it. Rather than doing what I did last time and giving you a detailed overview of every single unit in this army, I'm gonna go for more of a summary. Not just because New Antioch just has more units than Trench Pilgrims, but also because, frankly, I feel like that part of the video dragged a bit. So instead of giving exact descriptions of stats and special rules and things of that nature, I'm gonna go for more of a vibes-based description. I'm going to tell you what the unit is, how you use it, what I generally take with it, and the actual stats and rules text of the unit is going to be shown in a graphic on screen. It's like this. It's going to be like this. Alright, right. With that being said, the lieutenant is your warband leader. The only model you have to take one, but only one of. Lieutenants are versatile beatsticks with +2 to both ranged and melee, and access to the entirety of New Antioch's lengthy equipment list. This is going to be the most powerful unit in your army. Give them whatever you want. Machine armor, great swords, submachine guns, the sky's the limit. The only limitation is that they don't have strong, which means they can't take a two-handed melee weapon with a shield, but that's hardly an actual issue because they have access to machine armor, which gives them a base -3 armor anyway. Always make sure your lieutenant is leading from the front, where the fighting is thickest and where you can make the best use of his strong offensive stat line and supporting abilities. The Trench Cleric is your designated support officer, capable of handing out blessing markers and making friendly models immune to fear. It's more valuable that you make these guys harder to kill than good at killing, so invest in as much armor as you can for them, but maybe just kinda cheap out on their weapons. You want to make sure they can survive as long as possible to hand out as many blessing markers as they can before they die. Sniper priests are the exact opposite. ability to get plus 4D to ranged attacks base after a risky action before factoring in range or elevation bonus, you have a model that is scarily good at landing critical hits. Critical hits in Trench Crusade are just when you roll boxcars, double sixes. And if you're rolling 7d6 and taking the two highest, you're gonna be landing crits more often than you expect. The obvious choice is to give them a sniper rifle, granting them another plus 1d to hit, and ignoring armor on crits. This weapon very intentionally synergizes with the Sniper Priest stat line. But I've also seen truly deadly Sniper Priests equipped with machine guns, heavy shotguns, and other things of that nature. Whatever you give them something that hits very hard at range. That's it for elites, actually. Now we're just on to the common soldiery, but by God, is there a lot of common soldiery. Starting with the humble yeoman. This is your most basic chaff unit. They come pre-equipped with a bolt-action rifle and can be given an upgrade to give them the infiltrator keyword. A large enough line of yeomen can actually ping a decent amount of blood markers in a single round, or can valiantly leap in the way of oncoming bullets or a charge when something far more valuable is about to get its shit rocked. If you play them right, they can get a lot of work done, just don't expect them to kill anything. Moving on from that, we have the only dedicated melee option for New Antioch, the Shock Troopers. They are melee trade pieces, and can also be optionally equipped with short-range weapons like shotguns and flamethrowers in tandem with a greatsword or something. The goal of a Shock Trooper is to charge something, hopefully kill it, and then get immediately blasted off the board. Either dying to make sure that an enemy that's scarier in melee can't charge a more valuable ranged unit, or opportunistically taking out weaker enemy chaff. The more you spend on them, the less valuable they are as trade pieces, so moderate your spending a bit and they will pretty consistently make their ducats back. Finally, we have the backbone of New Antioch, the Combat Engineer. You can take up to 2 of them, and they get +1 dice to ranged, and come with free -2 armor. The name, the satchel charges, the fortify ability makes you think that these guys, want to be defensive castle builders. And you'd be kinda wrong. Combat Engineers are terrifying at close range, due to their ability to use their satchel charge like a grenade, and because of New Antioch's access to powerful short-range guns. The way you want to play them is actually fairly aggressive. Charge them forward to make sure they can pick off high-value enemy targets with their extremely powerful satchel charges. And then there are the mechanized heavy infantry, arguably the other backbone of New Antioch. They go into battle wearing power armor and carrying the heaviest weapons your army has to offer. Their lack of bonuses to melee and machine armor's minuses to charge actually makes them unideal as melee bruisers. They are terrifying with a heavy flamethrower, a heavy shotgun, or a machine gun in their hands. You should pretty much always bring as many heavies and engineers as you can get away with, depending on your variant. Last, but actually kind of least, is the combat medic. This unit, it's fine. They get +1d to use on a medikit. They get a kinda decent melee weapon. They get +1d to injure downed opponents. It's okay, but, they're not actually that great in melee regardless, and medikits just aren't that useful, so... I guess you don't have to spend glory on them, but, frankly, the fact that they were just something to spend some extra glory on was pretty much the only reason you ever took them in Pilgrims, so, Man, I really shouldn't review these units in order, huh? Right, before we go into the tactics side of their army, I briefly want to discuss their variants. And I must specify once again that there is no way in hell I am reviewing all of their variants in detail. There are so many of them, and they have so many more rules per variant than the Pilgrim variants do. So I'm just going to briefly go over the appeal of each one without actually going into specifics. Papal State's Intervention Force is for those who looked at the mercenaries and went, fuck yeah, I want to play an entire army of these. The Ire Rangers are if you looked at shock troopers and went, fuck yeah, I want to play an entire army of these. The Stoßtruppen of the Free State of Prussia is for those who looked at Cloud's Buster Sword and went, fuck yeah, I want to play an entire army where everyone is carrying one of these. The Tank Splitter Sword turns an army that usually wants to avoid melee combat into legitimately one of the scariest melee armies in the entire game. The Expeditionary Forces of Abyssinia are for if you really like trench clerics and short-range skirmish tactics. And the Kingdom of Alba Assault Detachment is for...
Hey, wait, they're coming! Lad, they're coming! There's a fucking robin! Fucking give them steel, guys! Give them steel! Hold the line! Hold the line! Fucking come and get it in! Come on, you want it steel, brother! No, Frederick! Frederick's gone in here next, you can!
As I said in the intro, New Antioch is undeniably the most popular army in the entire game. In my local Trench Crusade group, there are nearly double the amount of New Antioch players of any other faction. It's undeniable that among new and casual players, there is an extreme amount of appeal to New Antioch. This also isn't the best state of affairs because New Antioch is undeniably the hardest army in the game to do well with. In contrast to the last faction overview, New Antioch is very much not a brain-dead tank and spank army. I saved the tactics chapter of this video till the end because it's going to have to be a lot longer than the tactics chapter on the Pilgrims, and is more going to be focused on how to get to their skill floor as quickly as possible. The things you have to know to survive as this faction, rather than win consistently. Consistent results with this faction is only going to come as the result of consistent practice with this faction. But that can be its own kind of appeal. If you want an army that's going to more than give back the time and effort you put into it, then let this warning serve instead as an invitation to keep pressing forward. To understand how to play New Antioch, we first must understand fire teams. At the start of every game, you designate 2 fire teams within your warband. Each fire team is made up of 2 models, and models within a fire team can activate at the same time. Models within a fire team can perform as many actions as they can in whatever order they wish, with the caveat that if one model in the fire team's activation ever forcefully ends, because of a risky action most commonly, both models end their activation. So then, what's the benefit of fire teams? Well, beyond the obvious strength of getting to activate 2 models in a row, there's also concentrated attack. Concentrated attack means that if a member of a fire team attacks an enemy model that the other member in the fire team has already attacked in that activation, then the cost of bloodbathing that model is only ever 3 blood markers, as opposed to 4 if they're downed or 6 if they're standing. So let's do a bit of a hypothetical. Let's say you're playing New Antioch. You have a fire team with your lieutenant with a submachine gun and a heavy mechanized infantry with a heavy shotgun. You activate the fire team, the lieutenant shoots twice, because submachine guns can shoot twice. The first attack results in a downed, and the second attack, because of the extra injury dice from attacking a downed opponent, gets a second downed result in a row, meaning that the now downed enemy model has 3 blood tokens. Okay, Then the heavy mechanized infantry shoots that downed model. The heavy shotgun deals plus 2d on injuries when shooting at close range, and you get plus 1d on injuries when rolling to injure against a downed opponent. So you decide to bloodbath, meaning you're rolling 66 and adding the 3 highest results together. Yeah, that's a dead model. I don't care what you're shooting at, that thing is dead. Even against -3 armor, that's still a kill on average, in a single activation. No other army in the game can do that. Well, okay, there's one other army in the game that can do that, but we're gonna fucking get to them. They're gonna have their fucking day. And it's true that there are other models in the game, like the Artillery Witch or the Shrine Anchorite, that can roll 3d6 and add them all together on an injury roll, but those are always just the one model. This is a power that any 2 models within a new Antioch warband can have. But this extremely powerful special rule is also where their biggest weakness comes from. Fire teams are so powerful, but require both models to be alive to actually, be a fire team. So out of the 4 models across both fire teams in your warband, the enemy only ever has to kill 2 of them. If this happens, your army is effectively neutered and has to go without their primary special rule. Because of this, you need to play extremely safe with your fire team models and make sure they only attack when the time is right. They have to hit hard, they have to hit fast, and you have to make sure it swings the game in your favor when they do. Because if your fire team models start getting picked off, then your entire game plan will start unraveling before your eyes. But thankfully, you have some incredible units to make up for this Tower of Cards style dynamic. Between combat engineers and heavy infantry starting with -2 armor base, with it being possible to give both -3 fairly easily, the guys you should be putting in your fire teams to do these big spikes of damage are actually fairly durable. And yeah, your units are also fairly cheap. Yeomen are 40 points and come with a free weapon. Combat engineers are only 80 and have a base -2 armor as well as a buffed combat helmet, meaning the actual model itself only costs about 35 points, because it'd be 40 for the armor and 5 for the combat helmet, which is just baked into the total cost of the unit. That's 35 points for a unit with +1 ranged. That is extremely cost effective. Everything New Antioch has is extremely cost-effective, making them capable of playing like an extremely strong glass cannon trade army. When a combat engineer only costs 80, and a good loadout for them only costs an additional 45, that means you're paying 115 ducats for a unit that, if placed inside of a fire team, can fairly reliably just one-shot many units that would cost much, much more. Sure, it's a house of cards, but it's a house of cards that's got damned rocket launchers mounted to the patio. If a stiff breeze doesn't knock over that house immediately, the house is just deleting the entire zip code in response. But there is another issue making them a highly volatile army, and that is a lack of melee options, without dipping into variance. Shock troopers are your only dedicated melee option, and frankly, they aren't actually that good at it. They're good enough to keep enemies tied up in melee long enough for something more important with a big gun to do what they need to do, but unless you're playing Alba or Prussia, you're not going to be able to rely on them the same way you can with combat engineers or heavy infantry. This is a problem on the basis that the one thing ranged units are the most scared of is getting into melee. And with no other strong, dedicated melee options, it's hard to prepare for the eventual situation of a combat engineer or a sniper priest getting charged. Other more heavily ranged-focused factions, like the Sultanate or the Heretic Legions, have extremely strong melee options that can countercharge. able to save a vulnerable ranged unit from getting mauled to death in melee by simply entering that melee themselves and ending it before that can happen. New Antioch lacks this safety net completely. You either position yourself well enough that you're always within half range of your guns, but never inside guaranteed charge range, or put a wall of yeomen and shock troopers between you and the enemy to make sure that their strong melee units have something to chew through on their way to get to your ranged units. Either way, this dynamic means that even minor positioning mistakes get grievously punished. Add onto that the fragility of fire teams, and suddenly you have an army that gets punished more for mistakes than almost any other army in the game. If piloted well, they are oppressive to fight against. But I can speak from experience when saying that if piloted suboptimally, they lose, and they lose hard. If this all appeals to you, if you really like the idea of your wins all being because you really truly outskilled your opponent, if you want to flex your tactical muscles, or simply want to have an army that you will never truly reach a skill ceiling with, then you're in the right place. Here, let's do a quick test. Don't play this army. If your immediate knee-jerk response to that was, "Fuck you, don't tell me what to do," then this might be the army for you. You need to have a certain amount of enthusiasm for the army that'll help you get through the process of getting over their steep learning curve. With that being said, I think it's time to wrap up. New Antioch is undeniably Trench Crusade's most popular army, for a myriad of reasons. From the fantastic aesthetic, rich lore, large number of variants, and status as the highest burst damage army in the entire game, there's a lot of reasons to love New Antioch. However, their high skill floor, punishing gameplay, lack of viable melee options out of the default variant means that a lot of players who just pick up the army because they think it looks cool are going to find themselves quickly overwhelmed. So, with that in mind, after watching this video, how will you know if Antioch is right for you? Well, New Antioch is your ideal army if you like late medieval and World War I aesthetics. You like very skill-expressive armies. You like the fantasy of playing as the regular dudes who through ingenuity and determination are able to overcome demons and hulking monstrosities. You like an army that has a more down-to-earth gameplay style, with no magic or monsters or beasts, just guns and highly efficient small unit tactics. If that sounds like your jam, I would highly encourage you to sign up to defend the home of all our hopes. And as long as you keep picking yourself back up after you fail, you will eventually become a goddamn menace on the battlefield. Good luck out there, and happy painting. Just before this video ends, I want to give a quick shout out to Gabrielle Maggio, Gecko551, Juno Me, Angry Skeleton Pope, Connor Shaver, Henry Michelle, Jamie Harris, Maev, and Paul Camagliano, and S.J. Klepecki. I also want to give a brief shout out to the concept of anti-allergen meds. Okay, thank you. Have a good one.